Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Iman Sari Ujianti. I am the host of international webinar today. First of all, I would like to convey my greetings to all participants, wherever and whenever you are, especially to our guest speaker, Professor Abdullahi Ahmed An-Naim, who is right now with us from Atlanta, Georgia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
On the road towards the opening of UIII in September this year, we are delighted to present you a series of international webinars which will indulge you with fascinating topics and introduce you with a few brilliant speakers of international repute. In the first UIII webinar of January last month, we already presented to you an interesting topic entitled Islam, Authoritarianism, and Under Development, where Professor Ahmed Tikuru from San Diego State University joined us as a guest speaker. Today, for this second international webinar series, we are glad indeed to invite Professor Abdullahi Ahmed An-Naim to be our guest speaker, who will talk about liberating Sharia and decolonizing human rights. This topic is essentially a direct reflection of Professor An-Naim's lifetime research concern that is about Islam and human rights. The issue of decolonizing human rights is particularly raised to welcome and discuss his most recent research project on human rights that has resulted in a book which will be published on July 2021 by Cambridge University Press. All blessed speaker and participants, UIII is a newly established state international university founded in 2016 with presidential regulations and operates under the administration of the Ministry of Religious Affairs. For a brief introduction about the university, I would like to invite you to watch the following video. Please.
Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia adalah graduate school. Universitas Islam bertaraf internasional menjadi pusat pengkajian kebudayaan Islam yang modern, toleran, dan berkemajuan.
Secara fisik kampus ini didesain sebagai kampus yang ikonik, yang futuristik, dan diharapkan inilah salah satu model kampus dengan arsitektur tropikal. Kita harapkan bahwa para mahasiswa sivitas akademika itu nantinya menikmati suasana kampus yang hijau, yang berbuah, kemudian mereka juga bisa olahraga pagi, sore, naik sepeda dari asrama ke fakultas, ke library, ke masjid. Kampus ini kita harapkan betul-betul sebagai satu center for the epistemic community, pusat dari masyarakat ilmiah. Mereka ke sini betul-betul fokus untuk studi. Di samping Indonesia sebagai laboratorium yang hidup, pengalaman kita berdemokrasi, pengalaman bagaimana mendirikan republik ini, dan ini bukan Islamic State, kita juga menjaga kebinekaan. Hal-hal seperti ini kan unik sekali. Nah, bagaimana ini bisa kita kemas dalam satu format akademik dan budaya, kemudian menjadi semacam konsumsi intelektual bagi masyarakat intelektual Indonesia dan juga bagi masyarakat luar yang datang ke sini. Karena sebuah universitas itu mesti ada yaitu program humaniora, ilmu sosial, sains, di samping juga studi keagamaan. Dengan adanya beberapa tenaga ahli dari dalam luar negeri, mereka itu tidak saja memberi kuliah bagi mahasiswa dalam kelas, tapi kita harapkan mereka juga bisa diambil manfaatnya dan memberi manfaat pada komunitas di luar kampus ini. Dengan demikian kampus ini tidak saja dimiliki oleh masyarakat Indonesia, kita harapkan kampus ini dimiliki juga oleh dunia Islam. Keislaman yang berkembang dan yang kita kembangkan itu keislaman yang terkoneksi, terbuka, berdialog dengan ilmu-ilmu yang lain. Sekarang bagaimana kampus ini juga menyambung perkembangan sejarah yang agak terputus, satu bangunan ilmu yang sudah terpisahkan, yang sudah terdistorsi, yang termiskinkan. Kampus Islam itu tidak hanya Islamic Studies sesungguhnya, tapi juga mencakup berbagai ilmu-ilmu yang lain.
Dari Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia akan lahir intelektual yang memahami persoalan kehidupan global, menghadirkan solusi yang efektif dan bermanfaat untuk semesta. Rahmatan lil alamin.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy the brief information about the new campus. And now, let us begin this webinar by inviting Professor Komarudin Hidayat to deliver his welcoming speech. Professor, time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, Prof. Naim. I hope you get a small picture about our campus by
Yes.
that brief explanation.
Well,
Okay.
congratulations.
Thank you. Well, first of all, of course, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Abdullah Ahmed An-Naim for his acceptance of our webinar invitation entitled Liberating Sharia and Decolonizing Human Rights. This webinar is special for several reasons. First, as scholar, Professor An-Naim, the Ciputat Society close enough with him. His contributions to the study of religion and human rights are remarkable, as it is proved by his abundant research works and publication on Islam and human rights. Second, as a thinker, as man, and as man, Professor Naim's contribution to humankind is huge. He had always been upright in the forefront for the promotion of intercultural dialogue and to negotiate between universalities and localities. His upcoming book entitled Colonizing Human Rights is a clear example of how his commitment for the dialogue and negotiation is apparent and profound. The third reason is, as a Muslim, Professor An-Naim's contribution to Muslim society is unquestionably strategic, as evident in his tireless effort to promote a peaceful cultural transformation of Muslim society by ways of Islamic thought, reformation, and social mobilization. I think as Indonesian Muslim, we should manage to listen and learn from him. And I know that his book has been translated into Indonesia and widely read by many scholars in Indonesia. Thank you, Prof. In line with this, I'm more than happy to say that the establishment of this university shares Professor An-Naim's vision of social change. For this reason, I have cordially asked Professor An-Naim to join us as a visiting professor to be part of our history and future growth of this new campus. Well, I hope that you accept my request, Prof, to be part of our professor in this new campus.
I am honored to accept.
Yeah.
It is my
Yes, it is great honor for us to let you know that Professor Abdul has agreed, as you witnessed and listened already, to join with us. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Prof.
honor.
Well, Ahlul Kalam, I can't wait to enjoy your lecture, Prof. And thank you to all participants for your participation to join with us. And I hope that after this seminar, we can again provide you with another and following great seminar. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor, for your speech. And the next is the webinar session. I would like to invite Dr. Haidir Bamualim, the Secretary of University, to chair this session.
Thank you, Imam Sari. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum, brother Abdullahi and Naim. Good morning, Sabah al-Khair in Atlanta. All participants, all colleagues, all friends here in Jakarta, across the country, and somewhere else. To be honest, I'm so excited to chair this webinar, particularly, because of the topic and the speaker. The topic is indeed interesting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first time Professor Naim puts the two concepts, Sharia and human rights, together side by side. I aim to discuss them as a coherent theoretical framework. Similarly, if I'm not mistaken, please again correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is also the first time Professor Naim discusses the concept of liberating and decolonizing side by side. Now the question from these juxtapositions are, what is the connection actually between liberations of Sharia and decolonization of human rights? Why Sharia should be liberated? And how? Who are to play the role as the agent, and what are the objectives actually from this liberation? We have also the same question about, why human rights should be decolonized and why. These are the question, and in many respects, if looking at your lecture from the YouTube channel, you start to questioning the, liberal natures of human rights, the universal natures of human rights declaration. We have you today, and we want to, listen from you all the discussion, answers, and lesson, of course. And the second, I'd like to give you a little bit brief introduction about Professor Abdullahi Naim. He is Charles Howard Chandler Professor of Law at Emory Law School, and he is a senior fellow at the Center for the Study of Law and Religion at the same university. Professor Naim has authored and edited numbers of books, articles, and I think also book chapters. Some of them include, What is an American Muslim? The one is published by Oxford University Press in 2014. Naim has also Muslim and Global Justice. This one is published in 2011 by University of Pennsylvania Press, and Islam and Secular State. This is, published by Harvard University Press in 2008. And the most classic, I think this one is the most classic and controversial one, is Toward an Islamic Reformation. This is the one published in 1990, right, by Syracuse University, but this has been translated to Bahasa, right, into 1993, if I'm not mistaken, entitled Deconstruksi Sharia or Sharia Deconstruction. Then the book, after that sparked, controversy across the countries. In the 60s, I remember I was, the student at university in Yogyakarta by the time. The publisher house is, one one that is situated in Yogyakarta at the time. We name it Al-Kis, if I'm not mistaken. These are, you know, some of the publications of, you know, Abdullah An-Naim that I can mention. And, you know, from this, you know, you can see that he is such a prolific author. It is no question about that. But I think more than that, to me, Professor An-Naim is a transformation seeker. I think he is a dreamer. He's a challenger. I remember, you know, he said that I expect, you know, resistance. I'm not relevant if I'm not challenging. This is, you know, the statement that always, you know, been said by him. And I think from this kind of statement, it seems obvious to us that, you know, he likes to question all things established, be they from Islamic, you know, intellectual tradition or from liberal premises about Islam, state, and society. I believe this is the result of his deep reflection and understanding about concept, content, and context of both Islamic and liberal great tradition. Against this background, Professor An-Naim seeks to construct a theoretical foundation for the best interest for the transformation of Muslim society in particular, and for the best interest of humanity in general. So I would like to say Professor An-Naim is, you know, such an accomplished scholar, Al-Alim Al-Kamil. You know, he is like, you know, a reformer, transformer, and he is a game changer. Why not inviting him to give his lecture? And Naim, you are welcome to give your lecture. We have more or less 45 minutes to listening to you. And after that, we want to open, you know, question and answer session. Please, time is yours, Professor.
Thank you, Haider. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Haider, introduction to me and also Professor Karimuddin are very generous and kind, but I would like to begin by emphasizing that I speak for myself and on behalf of myself. That is, I do not represent anybody else except me, and I am responsible first for what I'm saying before anybody else. As a Muslim, as we all know, for us, it is always individual responsibility. You can never escape your individual responsibility, no matter where you go or what you do. At the end of the day, ultimately, it is your own responsibility. And that's why I think it is important to begin with this verse. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لم تقولون ما لا تفعلون كبر مقتا عند الله أن تقولوا ما لا تفعلون. That is, all believers, why do you say what you do not do? It is most hateful to Allah that you do not act as you speak. This unity between our action and our thoughts is the obligation of every Muslim and every man or woman all their life and in the next life. It's always there. It never goes away. The technology that enables me to reach you at this time in this manner is absolutely brilliant and magical. It's almost like, you know, in Alfi Layla wa Layla, the stories of 1,000 Nights and One in ancient Persian and Muslim mythology about the flying carpet. The idea is that people who did not have airplanes, did not have any of the facilities now we take for granted, used their imagination to travel. And so they invented the idea of a carpet that flies, so that whoever wants to fly can sit on the carpet and it will fly away. That was the level of their engagement with the future. For us today, it is about immediate conversation like this, that we both speak and understand and communicate our values, our concerns, our worries, and that we influence each other. Whether we like it or not, we are always influencing and being influenced by others. The question is, there are certain issues on which we welcome influence by other Muslims, but we tend to be suspicious of influence by Western liberal societies. And we have good reason for our concern, because liberal Europeans and North Americans have invaded our countries, violated our sovereignty, and killed our people. We should not be naive to think that everything is fine and that nothing is. I speak with tremendous anger when I think of the invasion of Iraq and how 250,000 Iraqis were killed, and the whole country was thrown into tremendous dislocation and instability for an ambition of an American leader who did not know what he was doing and did not care to know. He invaded Iraq in the name of destroying weapons of mass destruction. When he completed his occupation of Iraq, they could not find a single weapon of mass destruction in the entire country of Iraq. And yet, George W. Bush goes unaccounted for his failure and his irresponsibility. I live in the United States and I look to see who is criticizing George W. Bush for the unlawful and destructive and cruel and savage invasion of Iraq. Nobody. He lives in peace in his farm in Texas and he is giving lectures. Nobody is talking about his crime, a crime against humanity. My point is that if we do not respect and protect our rights, nobody will protect them for us. We should not look to the West and to think that they are civilized, they will protect our rights. In fact, the West invaded every single Muslim country in the world, every segment of our society, by military force and by cultural influence for decades. So I should not dwell in this too much, except to say that I am not naive. I know that the challenge is immediate. And I know that every human being, whether he or she is a Muslim or not, is always ambitious and greedy. You know, the Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian philosopher and extremely wise man, said that about how there is enough, he said, there is enough for our need, but there is not enough for our greed. Our greed wants to control and to take everything, but our need is limited. So you can accumulate millions of dollars, but at the end of the day, you need one bed to sleep in. You need 3 meals to eat and drink, and that's it. You cannot consume, you cannot eat your dollars. Therefore, the question is, why do we sacrifice our moral and intellectual integrity for the sake of accumulating wealth when everybody around us is poor and hungry? Stand reason. We can't take it with us. I mean, that's always how Muslims express this point. When we die alone. And when we resurrected, nub'ath alone. So I am alone when I am born in this life. I am alone when I die. I am alone when I am resurrected in the next life. That's it. And I am accountable. I can never escape my accountability. I think my point here is well, I hope, inshallah, well taken, but clear enough that I can move on to the subject of this lecture. I am grateful that I am able to communicate with you in this way. Otherwise, we could not have met simply because of the, not simply actually, but tremendously powerful reminder of our vulnerability is this coronavirus. Because, you know, the idea that we are so vulnerable from China to America to Indonesia to Central Asia, everywhere, human beings are human beings. And this infection will destroy elements in our bodies and kill us unless we can stand up and manage to find a cure, to find a way to immunize people against this danger. So it is ironic that we tend to celebrate our power. Is China more powerful or is the United States more powerful? In fact, both of them were so powerless in facing a single micro. I don't even know how this. Not my sons tell me, they are scientists. They tell me that you can't see it. You can study it, but you can't see it physically. That little thing that we couldn't see have brought China to its knees, have brought the United States to its knees, have brought Europe to its knees. And for us as Muslims, we have the message that tells us it is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is God who tests our faith. It is God who tests our commitment to values. But still we keep looking east and west. We don't look to Islam as a source of liberation, but we look to liberalism, we look to Marxism, we look to market economy, liberal values in that. So we look everywhere except where we should be looking in the first time, which is to Islam itself. The Prophet ﷺ said, كيف أنتم is the hadith which says that how would you be like when all other nations are converging and attacking you to eat your food and leave you hungry? And they said, do you mean Christians and Jews? Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, and he said yes. Who else? The point is that everybody is targeting our wealth, our influence, our political independence. And it's only up to us to defend it. If we do not, nobody else will. The title of this lecture Liberating Sharia and Decolonizing Human Rights. As Haider said, it is the first time I bring these two together in the critical spirit that I do. But I have talked before in somewhat superficial and optimistic tone about interdependence. That I have an article which you can download from my website in which I speak about how Islam or religion generally and human rights need each other, that neither is able to act or to serve without the support of the other. But of course, the question becomes, how do you do that? Today, I have come after a very long time. You know, I left Sudan in 1985 for political reasons. And some of you may be aware of that, the movement that I was part of. My teacher, Ustaz Mahmoud Muhammad Taha, and his life and the values he lived by all his life was killed in the name of apostasy. Although in 1985, in January of 1985, although he was to my own personal, I knew him, I lived very close to him for 17 years. Since I was a student in the law school of University of Khartoum. And I have never seen a Muslim who is truly Muslim more than Ustaz Mahmoud Muhammad Taha. And yet, for political reasons, because he used to criticize the elites who control the country. He used to criticize the Muslim brothers who corrupted the country and corrupted Islam and Sharia. And for that, they killed him, hoping to escape responsibility for their crimes. But that responsibility waits for every single one of them and us. It is never going to go away. The point is that I did not come to this conclusion out of naivete or out of hadid, al-ajala, rushing to come to a conclusion, because it does not work. If the values and ideas you are talking about are not deliberated and accepted or rejected by people to whom they are addressed, then there is no value. So I can speak until next day, but if I do not persuade you of the values that I'm trying to present and how we can translate those values into our action, then there is nothing really useful out of this. So I'm grateful for the technology, and I hope that I can reach you with the ideas that I'm going to present. And as Haider said, inshallah, we will take about 40-45 minutes for my presentation and then open up for your questions. But also I would like, please, to draw your attention that I have a website in which you can access everything I have written. You can download it and print it and read it wherever you are. Ironically, it's all in English. There are some items in Arabic, but most of the publications are in English. And the reason for that is very sad, is that we Muslims of the Arab world and Arabic-speaking Muslims do not have the ability to listen to each other or to publish and to read what we write to each other. So I have to escape from Sudan to go to the United States to publish about Islam and Sudan, and for people of Sudan to read me in or out of the United States. instead of reading me in Arabic in our own region. So it is, I say it is ironic because more Muslims globally speak and read English than they can speak and read any of the languages of the Muslim world. So here you have it that after colonialism ended in Sudan, in Indonesia, even the very fact that Indonesia, was it 1945 or 1950? Because the Dutch, who colonized the country for 400 years, were not willing to let it go and become free. Although they themselves were colonized and replaced by Germans, their European brothers and sisters next door. But when the Netherlands came out of its own occupation and humiliation by Germany, it continued to try to keep its so-called colonies in Southeast Asia and resisted their independence. I'm grateful that I had a chance to read and to listen to and to understand some of that history. When I was writing my book, Islam and the Secular State, and I lived in Yogyakarta and I lived south, and I talked to people and I understood many things. And it is the same story that Western societies are trying to destroy our confidence in our own values in order to occupy and to manipulate our economies, our defense, our foreign policy. That is, it is all what I call, in Arabic we call it khida. It is, I call it the trick of the 20th century. Because colonialism really, at the beginning of the 20th century, was at its peak. Most countries, after the First World War, when the Ottoman collapsed and India was falling to the British already and so on, at that time, a Western colonialism and Western ideology was supreme all over the world. By the end of the 20th century, it was just like any other. So this is one value to take, is that we should not really be greedy and seeking power, because none of it stays. We should be greedy and careful and welcoming to learn values and ideas and to discuss and so on. For some reason, I think maybe you understand it when you think about it, that whoever wants to control someone else will begin by controlling their mind and their character, their personality, before they control them physically. If you control a people physically, but their minds are free and their hearts are free, then you have not controlled them. And your existence on the streets, carrying your weapons and all of that, will become just simply empty shell. It has no value. So therefore, we have to liberate Sharia from the control of both backward-looking extremist Muslims and backward-looking extremist liberals, Westerners. Europeans and North Americans are as ignorant of the true value of Sharia as Muslims of the Africa and the Middle East and South Asia and Southeast Asia. Islam is the second largest religion in the world. Second largest. But it is all sort of so faint and colorless. That we say, yes, we are Muslims, but let's go on to talk about something else. What do you mean? So if you are Muslim, what is more worthy of talking about than Islam itself? It should not be a matter of going to talk about how Huntington talked about the clash of civilizations, and is it true or is it false? To me, it is irrelevant. What Huntington said and what Western scholars said about what Huntington said is all irrelevant. My challenge is my own. What do I think of Sharia? What do I think of uh, Western philosophies and ideas and ideologies? What I think about colonialism and about human rights? These are issues that affect my life and my community. So I should not be chasing after Western, really foolish and superficial. The idea of class civilization is childish. It's not even worth the time I spent reading it. Nonsense. But then at the time, everybody was talking about it. Our universities were giving people degrees, PhDs in liberal thought and in Huntington theory, clash of civilizations, is it true, is it not? All that was wasted time and energy because we left our own issues at home unattended to. That's why I'm concerned about liberating Sharia and about decolonizing human rights. Let me say a couple of words about decolonizing human rights. The term decolonize means to liberate, but just to use a different term, so I talk about liberating Sharia and decolonizing, meaning getting rid of the colonialism or colonization of human rights and other values, constitutionalism, the rule of law. These are values which we acquired through colonialism. They are not indigenous to our regions. But ultimately, really, the values are, but we don't see them. We see them in Western clothes. We don't see them in native clothes. That's why I think the Mahatma Gandhi used to dress in very simple, basic Indian clothes that he weaved himself to be independent of Western control of the textile industry in India, because that was the means by which Indian economy was destroyed. But the point is that we have to go back to our own to be able to see beyond our noses. Just instead of just simply talking about things that are so close we can't even see them, we should see all around us. All right. So the point is that I said I would like to speak about Sharia to begin with, because that is my immediate issue. That is my question for life and death. That is the measure of my accountability. I know my first obligation. But what is Sharia and how do we understand it? And can we change our understanding about it? This is the fundamental question. You have these very arrogant and foolish Muslims running around killing other people. Boko Haram, Islamic State in Iraq and Syria and the Sham, the wider region. So it is, we look for answers elsewhere, and we fail to acknowledge our limitation in understanding our own solutions. So excuse me, because I have this dry mouth that comes. I hope, inshallah, it's getting better. But the point I'm making now is to say that we should take Sharia more seriously, rather than just simply an inconvenience or an annoyance. Sharia, as understood by Islamists, we call them, or Islamic fundamentalists, I mean, whether Indonesia or all over the world, Indonesia is slightly, inshallah, better than others. At least there is more discourse, and Indonesians are more careful to talk and to think and to debate. But when you come to the Middle East, when you come to other parts, India and Pakistan, it's a very sad story. It's a very sad story for those who are the heirs. We inherited ultimate wisdom and ultimate value in Islam and in Sharia as we understand it and in our practice of it, and went to look for solutions elsewhere. So that's why I say I have to start at home. So this idea about liberating Sharia may sound shocking to some Muslims, but in fact it is self-evident. It is very obvious. If only we would think. Sharia as a term that we understand and use it today does not exist in the Quran at all, let alone how it is understood and what content. See, it does not exist. It is not there. In fact, historically, the term Sharia was unknown to Muslims for the first 300 years of Islam. So if you travel, remember I mentioned the flying carpet, if you take the flying carpet and go back to the 7th century, to the 8th century, to the 9th century, to the 10th century, and went to the mosque and asked who is the most learned in this place, and someone say that Sheikh so and so is learned, and you go to him and say, tell me about Sharia, he will not know what you are talking about. Completely. The idea that there is something called Sharia, which is organized and codified and ready to apply and to use, does not exist in Muslim history. All the way to the Ottomans in the middle of 19th century, when they codified in al-Majalla some of the views of the Hanafi school. That's all. So for 1400 years, we never had codification of Sharia. Precisely because it is too valuable to codify. Not because it is too irrelevant, no, but it is too valuable to codify. Because when you codify it, you kill it. You make it dead, unable to think, unable to advance. By keeping it from codification and leave it in the hearts and minds of Muslims, men and women, then it is live and it is powerful and it is transformative. So by live, I mean that we have to understand that anybody, anywhere, if he or she speaks about Islam, they are speaking about their understanding of Islam, not Islam itself. Nobody speaks for Islam. Nobody speaks for Sharia. But everybody speaks about their understanding of what Islam is, their understanding of what Sharia is. So when we debate, we are not disputing Islam itself. We are disputing the understanding of some people of Islam. And therefore, nobody should be persecuted or killed because he said odd or strange views. I say sometimes that heresy is a blessing, not a curse. ليست بدعة, but it is more of a wake-up call, a reminder of the inner value of things. So we should not kill people because we don't agree with them, because that doesn't change anything. In fact, we are responsible for their life, but we have made no difference by killing them. When I left Sudan in '85, my obsession was that I have to do all I can to keep the ideas of my teacher alive, so that people who killed him do not manage to kill his ideas by killing him. So the value to me was that you should not be able to kill an idea by killing its author. And this technology today, and Zoom is invented by a Chinese or Korean scholar or scientist. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly, but I know that he's from that region. Chinese origin, Chinese identity, Chinese name. But now Zoom is a global technology. Everybody uses Zoom. Everybody needs Zoom. Now that is a value that this person brought to human society everywhere. So the idea that the best of people are those who are most useful. The hadith says, Al-Khalqu Iyalullah. That is, humanity are the children of Allah. خيركم أنفعكم لعيالي. That is, the best of you are those who are most useful for the children of God. It did not it did not say Muslims. I think we tend to forget to notice these things. That when the hadith was talking about the idea of who is the best and most honored in the sight of God, God did not speak in terms of Muslims or men. It is entire humanity, men and Muslims, men and women, kafir or Muslim or believer. And also that the point is that no matter what, whenever you see that the Islam is bringing forward a fundamental principle, it is bringing it in the name of humanity, not in the name of Muslims and Islam. Because all are the creature of God, all are the children of Allah. So how can you win favor of a father of a child by condemning that child to death because he or she is a kafir according to your thinking? I always wonder how can Muslim brothers and fundamentalists like that believe that they have the answer from Islam. Who are you to know that? How do you know that? There is much more to Islam than what you think. Islam has been the religion of humanity for thousands of years. And you come and tell me now at the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st century, that you have mastered all knowledge about Islam so that you can teach me what is Islamic and what is not. I think we share this critique and we should not waste our time talking about it much, but I wanted just to be clear that the term Sharia is an invention. It is not a divine term of a divine idea. It's a human term for a human idea. That is, the Prophet ﷺ did not pass on to Rafiq al-A'la by leaving in our hands a single unified comprehensive code we call Sharia. No, he did not. And we have the history. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the first caliph, he knew that he did not have the key to all knowledge of Islam and Quran. So he said, if I am made your Khalifa, and although I am not the best among you, the first Khalifa, I am not the best among you. So if I do the right thing, support me. If I do the wrong thing, correct me. Here it is. Nobody, not even Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, control knowledge of Islam, who is a Muslim and who is not, what is good and what is bad as an Islamic principle. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, the second caliph, same idea. When he speaks in the mosque and a woman stands up to challenge him, we say this hadith without thinking actually. This woman was sitting in the mosque challenging the Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen. So how can we say that women cannot go to mosque or women cannot go out in public life? Here we have it. Umar ibn Khattab, in his own congregation, in the masjid where he was speaking, and because they did not have microphones, they all must have been much closer to the hadith, to the speaker. And he said something, and this woman stood up and challenged him. Unfortunately, Muslims who tell this story, tend to take it very superficially, as if to say that, look, even a woman could challenge Umar. That is not the point. If that woman was thinking that she was only a woman, not someone of value, of authority, she would not have stood up to challenge the caliph, the Khalifah al-Mu'mineen, or Amir al-Mu'mineen. So the point is that these communities disagreed about, and we know that we had civil war. Ali and Aisha, Ali and Uthman, and what happened to him? He was killed in his house in Medina. Uthman ibn Affan, he was killed by Muslim young men in his house in Medina, and other Muslims did not rise to defend him. Ali ibn Abi Talib was also killed. So we say that we have 4 caliphs, 3 of them were killed. Umar and Uthman and Ali. Umar's death may have been a personal issue, not a public issue, but Uthman and Ali were killed because of disagreement about Islam. I don't say Sharia because Ali did not know what you are talking about if he said Sharia. Uthman ibn Affan did not talk in terms of Sharia. He did not say Sharia installed me as Khalifa. He said Allah installed me as Khalifa. He was, with all due respect, really not helpful by putting it that way, because he made his own entitlement to Khilafah as if it is a divine right. That Allah nasabani, Allah aqamani, Allah made me your leader. No, the people who voted for you made you their leader. Maybe, and of course, you will not be a leader unless Allah said so. But that was not the reason why you became Khalifa. You became Khalifa because there was a tahkim, the committee of 7 who were supposed to choose the successor of Umar. And they said, they came to, the point is that they came to Ali and said, Ali, we would like to make you the Khalifa, but you have to promise us that you will do exactly like what the 2 caliphs, the first caliphs, Al-Shaykhan, Ali, Abu Bakr, wa Umar, that you promise us you do exactly what they did and we will make you Khalifa. Ali said, no, I refuse to make that promise because my responsibility is to judge according to my understanding of the conditions under which Muslims live. So things will change, and I will not accept being bound to repeat the previous rule of Umar and Abu Bakr because it is no longer the context in which these. This is our sort of heritage as Muslims, and yet we go on and talk about you have to do exactly what Omar said. No, 1400 years later, no. And Ali already said it even like 20, 30 years later. I think it was 20 something because Abu Bakr was very short, his Khilafah, and then Umar longer. Osman was longer the two among them. But the point is that at that time, Ali said, no, I will not just blindly follow the caliphs who preceded me. Osman radiallahu anhu said, I will. He believed, he thought that he will be able to repeat exactly what the former caliphs did. And we know that it was not a very fortunate time for Muslims and for Osman. And he tended to bring closer to him people he trusted. But that was wrong because the people he trusted may not have been the best people of the community. In fact, we know they were not. But we came much later and we can see now more clearly what happened. But the point I'm making, and I will move on by after this, is that the first tradition we have was a democratic tradition, a tradition of debate, of contestation, or challenge. And if we continued, we would have remained up to centuries to come. But unfortunately, we absconded, we evaded our responsibility and gave up. And that's why I'm saying liberating Sharia, I mean liberating what we believe to be something called Sharia, which is essentially and fundamentally a human product, not a divine product. Because the divine is in the Quran. But understanding the Quran to create rules for daily practice, that is human. And it is not bad because it is human, but it is not good also because it's human. It's just simply something that can be bad or good. So take your responsibility, examine what the X did or Y did, and come to a conclusion for which you are responsible. For a conclusion I am responsible for, if I support it. Not because it is divinely ordained, because we know that is misleading. It is not accurate. Muslims really did a brilliant job. You know, notwithstanding all what Mr. Shirgun said and what the Western imperial ambitions did about Islam and Sharia, they disregard this sort of relegated Sharia as something primitive and so on, in order to occupy our minds and then occupy our hearts, in order to control our lands and wealth. The point is that we allowed them to do that. That's the beautiful expression or idea by Malik bin Nabi, Algerian, I think, a scholar who lived in Egypt the last years of his life and died, I think, around 1970, 71, who said colonialism is a consequence, not a cause. Al-Istimar was a consequence, but not the cause. The cause was our ignorance. The cause is our distrust The cause is our greed, our primitive ways. Can you believe it? In the 21st century, Saudi Wahhabis and Yemeni Zaydis are fighting for years, and the United States is selling weapons to both of them. Maybe less to Yemen, but I'm sure that it came to Yemen through the back door. But it went to Iran also and came to Yemen. The point is that we have a, a, a war between two factions of Muslims in the 21st century. And both of them are looking up to America to save them from themselves. So these are the issues that we have to be very thoughtful about. So to conclude on this point, the question is that Sharia is not divine. Sharia is wad'i. It is a qanun wad'i. It is secular legislation based on our understanding of Islam and our belief in it, but it is not Islam itself. It cannot be Islam itself. Only the Prophet ﷺ can speak about Islam itself. Everybody else, starting with Abu Bakr, he speak about his understanding of Islam, not Islam itself. Okay. Now, let me move to the next subject so that we cover it again. And I'm open to questions and we can continue to debate. What I mean by decolonizing human rights is to say that human rights, again, of course, it is not divine by any means. It is a human invention. It's a human idea. It's a beautiful, powerful idea, but it's a human idea. And who says humans are not able to invent powerful, beautiful ideas? They do, and they have done it so many times. But the point is that human rights is something that came about in the first half of the 20th century. Nobody knew what human rights, what the term is and what does it mean and how do you make it happen. Nobody did. Liberals, philosophers, Kant, blah, blah, blah. No. They were all just simply ordinary people speculating about questions that societies have to face and giving their own personal opinion. Kant or whoever can never claim more authority than his own personal. But that is really good. Our curse in the Muslim world is that we claim divine support for our human ideas. Whereas the European Christians, and by that time Christianity itself was seeding in their hearts and minds, but they are still identified as Christians, they took the ideas of people as human ideas, talked and about them, shifted law alliances and so on. So the point is, therefore, human rights is not divine, human rights is not ancient. When Muslims say that Islam invented human rights, nonsense. That is the talk of irresponsibility. It sounds like pious. You are attributing Islam is better than everything else because it invented this and that. No, and no, for a very good reason. That the idea itself was not there. It was still another 1400 years before the idea of human rights comes into being. So how can Islam, and that is not a critique of Islam, that's in fact an honoring of Islam. Because Islam in the 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, all the way to the 19th century, offered Muslims what is most logical and necessary for their own life and conditions of their life. If Islam attempted to impose Sharia, human rights on Sharia of the 7th century, it would have failed. And people would have committed atrocities, killed each other in the name of human rights. So which does not happen, did not happen. So the point is that in the 20th century, for very objective reasons that we can see and understand, the Hitler's massacring of the Jews, the Holocaust, the invasion of Europe, and the Japanese invasion of Indonesia, the Japanese invasion of China and Korea, all these countries of Southeast Asia. It was ambitious human beings who really had nothing to do with deen, with Allah, with Quran or Hadith or anything. Ambition, personal ambition. Hitler, because he wanted to make his own people supreme. Nonsense, of course. All human beings are karramna bani Adam. It did not say karramna al-Alman or karramna al-Yabaniyin. It did not say we honor Japanese or we honor Germans. It said we honor human beings, bani Adam. The most comprehensive, universal term. If you are a human being, then God has honored you. Karramaka. So that's how it is. But of course, the Germans were looking for their Aryan philosophy and to control the rest of Europe, and they did until the rest of Europe, with the help of the United States, turned around, and with the help of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, the Marxists, the brutal dictator, Stalin, was essential for the ability of the West to defeat Hitler. So all these issues should be seen clearly. It is not that America is good and Soviet Union is bad. It is that they had to cooperate to save themselves from Nazi Germany's fascist regime. But the point I'm making here is that when they came to talk about human rights, and the idea was coming from that war to say that so that we don't have something like what we had just now, let us bring human rights to the forefront and declare its value and so on. And they did. 1948, they drafted by the UN Human Rights Commission, drafted the Universal Declaration and went on subsequently to bring about new covenants like civil and political rights covenant, economic and social rights covenant, rights of the child, all the way to the 2000s. And now we have more than almost 200 instrumental documents which have human rights as its core. But the point is that the human rights that everybody was talking about was relative, not universal. Because the human mind cannot think in universal terms. It can only think in relativist terms. Because we are the product of our culture. We are the product of our religion. We are the product of our values. So when we speak, we're speaking about our understanding of our values, our understanding of our religious belief. The hadith about al-fitra, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, when we said that a human being is born on fitra, يولد الإنسان على الفطرة فأبواه يمسحانه أو يجنسانه أو. That is, it is our community which makes us conform to the religion of our ancestors, but not our essential essence as human beings. So the point, therefore, is that these ideas come as from human beings. They are accepted or rejected by human beings. They are attempted to be applied by human beings. And of course, to be honest, if we live up to the Universal Declaration, we would be really civilized and humane and kind and thoughtful. I was in Jakarta, I was in, sorry, in Indonesia when the tsunami uh, swept away the Dar es Salaam, no, northern Sumatra. And Indonesians were desperate. Everything went away, just like that. You can see the wave coming from the west side and sweeping through the north into the east side. Who came to support and help and feed Indonesian Muslims? Western Christians and Western secularists, not the Muslim world. We can look and see. This is very recent history, 10, 15 years, and see where did the aid come from? Where did the concern for our plight and our destruction come from? It came from other human beings who happen to be non-Muslims. It did not come from Muslims. So therefore the Muslims are not Muslims. Because you see, we always talk about, the Prophet said this, the Quran said that about Muslims and about those who followed Muhammad والسلام, assuming that we are it. It's absolutely staggering. The arrogance and the stupidity, with all due respect, all the stupidity of thinking the Prophet said Muslims are this and that, and we are that. We are the Muslims of Zeda. In fact, if you think you are not, by definition, because you are not doing what Muslims are supposed to do, but you are creating an illusion for yourself and for everybody else that you are the one who's living up to what the Prophet promised. No. None of us. Alhamdulillah, I am one of you, and I know that I am not worthy of claiming the values that Islam brought to humanity. I can argue and say that we should do that. I can strive, ujahid, in repressing my primitive, savage, uncivilized instincts in order to promote the humane, the kind, the thoughtful values. Yes, I can struggle for it, but I cannot claim to have achieved it. At-tawadu, one of the most powerful values in our Islamic tradition is humility. Humility is really the supreme value, but very few of us are aware or care to try to be. At best, we can only try to be humble, but we may not be. But the vast majority of us go to the mosque and pray Jum'ah and then go and play this and do that, and thinking that they are the Muslims that the Prophet intended or talked about. And that is really foolish. We are not. And if we really own and honor our understanding of Sharia, we would admit that we are not the people that the Quran and Hadith spoke about. So therefore, for every community, we have a long way to go. But Europe, because it was the colonial, Europe and North America, because who occupied and colonized Indonesia, the Philippines, it was the United States. Who colonized many regions of the North Atlantic and also South Atlantic and so on, it was the United States. So the United States was as imperial, as colonialist as Europe was. The Berlin Conference, 1884-85, the one that European and the United States, she was a full member of that conference, divided up Africa among themselves. You take this, I take that. Just like children playing a game. And the reference is to just simply land, not to the people on the land. Therefore, humanity and human rights were absent in European thinking, which was colonial. No colonial power spoke about the people who are being colonized and humiliated and impoverished. They talk about the land, and the land as divided among Europeans. France, you take West Africa. Britain, you take Southern West Africa and Central and East Africa. Germany was given something and then they taken it away. I mean, the both Angola and Mozambique were Portuguese, but and that was another story. But the point I'm saying is that our humanity as African Muslims or Christians or whichever religion was not honored by the colonial powers who divided up our land among themselves. Ghanaim, just like the spoils of war. And they did not even fight for it. They said, let's not fight each other. France, you take West Africa, Britain, I'm not going to contest and fight you on this. We take the Nile Valley and Central East Africa, and you should not come over here to contest us. They divided us among themselves, not us actually, our land, because ourselves, they never cared who we are or what we do. That's why I'm saying that human rights can never be the values that people live by until we acknowledge that history. And from that, of course, we see that we have to look elsewhere. And we can find European contributions, but we can find also Islamic, African, or Central Asian, or East Asian contributions. Because it is human beings. And human beings are really honored by God. And وَكَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. What does karramna mean? It means that they will do the right thing. They will live up to real values. So I should be coming close to my conclusion so that we can have a discussion about this. The point of this shift in my thinking is that I am trying to bring together the values of Islam and the values of human rights by liberating Sharia from the hold of the fuqaha. Fuqaha are the followers of Umara. You know, the scholars, so-called of Islam, who go to schools, Al-Azhar and Al-Qura, and wear the Saudi style dress and so on, they come to our people to try to persuade them that we represent what Islam is. No, you don't. You represent your own human thinking. It could be good, it could be bad, but it is not Islam itself. And so on. So we have to decolonize, meaning that human rights are not really the product of Western liberalism, because Western liberalism is relativist, as Western culture, what they accuse Muslim cultures of being relativist. We are all, no human being can be universalist by themselves. It's a process, and we have to come to consensus on the values in order to have this idea of universality of human rights. So that is why I think I'm trying to bring the two together so that we can genuinely think and believe and behave and act according to those values of both Islam and human rights. Human rights is a human idea. Islam is a divine religion understood by human beings and practiced by human beings. When the two to come together, if they apply a true understanding of their origin, they will come to great and glorious humanity and civilization. If they don't, then we are back to our savage colonialism and tribalism and violence. I hope, inshallah, that I have presented enough ideas to be debated, and I hope that you will um, give me a chance to explain and by asking me the questions that I missed maybe, and inshallah, this will not be the last time. Inshallah, if I remain alive, inshallah, I will do this again. Of course, nobody knows when, but inshallah, I hope I will be able to continue this conversation, and the technology makes it possible. The website is there for you to read what I'm saying and so on. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Assalamu warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Naim, for inspiring lecture, and you have raised many significant and important points about the issue of Sharia and the definitions of liberating Sharia, and then you went to discuss about what the colonizing human rights means. I believe, because we have a lot of questions from the audiences, then it would be better for us to, leave the time for check at the question and answer features. We have got numbers of questions, Professor Naim. I'm afraid I can't read all of them. We have got this more than 15 questions, but let me read one by one from who asked first, right? Let me read for you the question, Naim, and then you can answer the question. I will start by 5 questions. The first 5 questions. The first question is that Assalamu alaikum, Honorable Abdullahi and Naim, and all speakers. How can we integrate human right values in our Islamic legal system? Whereas our Islamic legal system is still based on textual Quranic interpretation and traditional Islamic jurisprudence. This is a question from Mayadina. This is, I think, a student from Jepara in Central Java, if I'm not mistaken. And you got the point, right? First question, Pak Naim. Brother Anaim, you got yes. The question, right?
I thought you were...
The second question is from Shamsul Adha. I'm not sure where it's from, but the question is, how should Muslim society deal to the reality that Sharia is imperative norm for every Muslim, but at the same time, we also face the plurality and multiculturality of people of the world. This is the second question. You got the point. You want to answer these 2 questions first, or shall I go to the next question?
Okay. I will try to be brief so that we can listen to the other question.
Yes, we can go to the second question. Okay, please.
The first question is how to integrate these values in Islamic legal system. There is no such a thing as Islamic legal system. Muslims throughout 1400 years did not have an Islamic legal system. Islamic legal system is a colonial product, not an Islamic product. Because the idea of Islamic itself is Western Orientalist and colonialist coming to tell us you have to organize your life according to European principles so that you can be civilized. And of course, it was not, the object was to kill our values, our respect of Sharia in order to impose Western legal systems. So I would challenge the claim that there is something called Islamic legal system. And the point is that today we have more than 50 Muslim majority countries. Saudi Arabia, I will not mention, it is at the bottom of the scale. But Muslim societies which are really Muslim live by such a wide variety of legal systems and political systems. Therefore, we should understand that if we say there's something called Islamic legal system, I will ask you, explain it to me, describe it for me. And when you try to do that, you will see that it does not exist. Never existed in the past, never can exist in the future. The second question is this need to balance or to negotiate Sharia as an imperative reality and multicultural modern Muslim societies. Actually, this negotiation and balancing is at the core of what I'm saying. But it begins by understanding that we create barriers by the language we use. When we say Sharia reality and multicultural, as if they are two different things. Actually, it is not. These are just simply ideas that human beings came up with, and there is no conflict between them anyway, if we understand them properly. One point I wanted to make earlier on, actually, when talking about this pandemic of the virus, the idea that it came out of China, and it's really foolish to say that Chinese invented them or manufactured them. This is stupid. Unfortunately, it was something that the President of the United States at the time promoted, but it is a stupid idea that betrays his own personal ignorance. He knows nothing about the world to speak in that voice. But anyway, we have to say this. I'm sorry. I feel so frustrated that he is getting so much. I'm talking about Trump, of course. But I'm talking about the fact that 70 million Americans voted for him. So it is not Trump alone. It is Trump who was voted for by more than half or almost half the total population of the United States. Fortunately, Biden received 75 million, so 6-7 millions more than Trump. But the point I'm making is that the fact that the United States is so powerful, so rich, is so vocal, they speak all the time. We are here to promote democracy. We are going to, and this current president also does the same thing. They talk, but they don't do any of that. And they talk in order to manipulate, but not in order to honor. So the point I'm making is that we should not use the language. I remember I quoted to you Malik bin Nabi, who said that colonialism is the consequence, not a cause, meaning that we surrendered our values, our knowledge to colonialism, and colonialism managed to control us by that. So I'm saying, let us not mix cultural, multiculturalism and Sharia. Sort of, we should not put them as different camps or different silos, you know, the silo where you put the grain. These are just simply ideas. And they are ideas which are true by being interdependent. not by being separate. Sharia, which is a human invention in Muslim history, needs human rights to be able to live well and to live honestly according to its own values. And cultural multiculturalism. Who is multicultural more than Indonesia? So Indonesia is the ultimate in multiculturalism. So why should it be seen as a struggle? These people have been living together for centuries. And only recently with the Marxists and this and Japanese and so on, so external imperial powers which created division. So I'm saying live by your values as Indonesians and you will be living by your values as a Muslim. There is no difference between the two. Either live your values or abandon them. And it is you who make that choice. Nobody else make it for you. Okay. That's what I can say.
The next question, Professor Naim, is a question about the difference between liberating Sharia and Maqasid al-Sharia. And this is the third question. And the fourth question is, actually you have explained this one, how the word Sharia come into existence in Islamic tradition. And he said, how does Sharia, in your understanding, capable of transforming Islamic or Muslim current malaise? These two questions, please.
On the first question about Maqasid al-Sharia, is a human idea. So it is not divine, and because we tend to like it because it simplifies things. You know, all it's telling us is that, you know, we should seek the objectives of Sharia. And as if that is the answer. Of course it is not. Because do you see the discrimination against non-Muslims? You know, the way Ahlul Dhimma are killed and ruled, and is that Maqasid al-Sharia or the opposite of Maqasid al-Sharia? So the idea that we can escape moral responsibility by using a term like this is really not very helpful. When you tell me one of Maqasid al-Sharia is protecting religion, but according to what understanding of religion? Is it a religion that condemn people of the book to second-class citizens in their own country? Or is it a religion that creates equality for women and for non-Muslims? So that's why Maqasid al-Sharia is only beginning a conversation, not concluding it. And personally, I do not think that it is a productive way, and I would rather focus on immediate balancing of these two values, the values of the individual and the values of the collectivity, the community. And social justice, peace, development, democratization, all these are good values, but we have to translate them into our own language. Okay? So Maqasid is really something that I look forward to dealing with. And the question about which was, I'm sorry if I missed the second question. Haider? I can't hear you.
Yeah. The questions about you know, when Sharia came into existence in Islamic tradition, and you know, okay. he hoped whether he questioned whether, you know, Sharia is capable of, you know, transforming Muslim societies to be a better society or not.
Yes, it can, but not the way it is understood today. So to begin with, there is a very useful article by W.C. Smith, who is a Canadian scholar of Islam, who used to teach at McGill in Canada. I say McGill because I know that some of your Muslim scholars have studied in McGill and other Western society. So some of you went to McGill maybe and know it. So the point is that this scholar explained by and in a very honorable and very well-informed way. He traced the use of the term shara or sharia or ashra, all these derivatives of the term, through the Muslim writings of the first 300 years of Islam. And he came to the conclusion, quoting to us, you will see when you read this article, you will see, for those who know Arabic, you will see the Arabic roots of this, and those who read English only can still get the point, that in fact, that the term was not known. Al-Mutakallimun, the group that is called Al-Mutakallimun, meaning those scholars of Usul al-Fiqh, started using the term after 300 years in very different meanings than the meaning that we use today. I'm going to send this article to Haider, and if you want a copy of it, write to him or he will forward you. It's going to be electronic. So, because no, I have it electronic, and I will pass it on forward to Haider electronic, and he can forward to any of you who ask for it. And you will read and you will see by his sources, by his discourse, how T.W. Smith really managed to explain and to confirm that Sharia was unknown to any. Think for yourself. You know, I am putting my own personal salvation on this issue, meaning that if I am proven to be wrong, then I will be accountable for my mistake. Help me by getting me sources during the first 3 centuries of Islam that spoke of Sharia like the way we do. If you give me that, then I will take back my claim that Sharia is a human product of the 3rd century of Islam and later. But if you find that there is no other source that will show you this, I beg you to accept my classification of this notion about Sharia being eternal or being divine or immutable. Now, I think the last part of the question was about how can we live by this? We live by it by understanding it and understanding the wisdom of it. The rationale of judgment is the key. You know, I will give you a quick story. I'm sure that you all know about it. Sayyidina Sulaiman, who was a king and a very wise and very powerful scholar and thoughtful person. You know, the 2 women who came to him disputing that a child, one of them said that this baby is my baby. I gave birth to it and I feed it and so on. The other one, who was jealous because she could not have children, said, he is my baby. And Sayyidina Sulaiman said, okay, let us divide the child into 2. You take 1/2 and the other one take 1/2. The one who was not the true mother of the child said, yes, that's a good solution. Because she wanted to deprive the other woman of her child. The other woman, who was the true mother of the child, said, no. I would rather give it to her to raise than have it cut into 2 so that each of us have a half. Now, the beauty of this story is maybe it happened, maybe not, but the rationale that you judge according to a wisdom, according to an understanding of human nature, Now, human rights give you the door to that, but they are not the answer themselves. Meaning that human rights enable you to publish your ideas, but does not support your ideas as good or bad, because it doesn't know and it shouldn't decide that question. That is up to you. That you as Muslims decide, does this make sense to me or not? So in that sense, I'm saying that Sharia can be of value to our societies if we understand it correctly, according to the ethos of the age of today, not the ethos of 1400 years ago. The early Muslims lived by Sharia as it suited them, and they were right to do that. But wrong for us today to go back and say, give us what you did and we will do it here today. Look at me, I'm talking to you in this technology, invented by a Chinese guy who was not a Muslim. So I am a Muslim, inshallah, I hope to be. And you are Muslims, inshallah, you hope to be. And we can converse, talk about our issues through a medium. The computer was invented by, or rather developed by American business people, capitalists, Bill Gates and others and so on. So the technology helps us to communicate, but the technology does not control what we say in our communication. So inshallah, I will send you the article to read and to decide for yourself that the term Sharia was unknown. Just simply they did not know it. They never thought of it. So why are we now forcing them to accept something they never did? No. And it doesn't help us at all.
Thank you, Professor. The next question, we still have, more or less 11, minutes to go. Actually, we have number of questions left, but I don't think that, we can answer all of them. Sorry for this.
If you
or this last.
Haider, if you read them all, then I will try to bring them together in my response.
Yeah. This fifth, or I don't know, sixth question is about approaching, understanding Islam. Is asking about, what shall we, what kind of methodology Muslims should use, in order to, better understand or interpreting Islam. He's mentioning here, the examples of the use of Meccan verses, right? Like you have much discussed it in your Facebook, Toward an Islamic Reformation, or Medinian verses. He again mentioned about what is about the Maqasid or classical fiqh literature, and what things that can be better used, to have a better understanding about Islam.
Okay.
And the next question is, about the this is about the definitions of, liberalization and the renewal of Sharia, whether there is a difference or not, liberating Sharia or renewing the Sharia. This is the second last question. And the last is that the question about whether there is a strong correlation between liberation and what he said as the second message of Islam according to Muhammad Taha, your teachers, the correlation between liberation and the second message. I think these three questions, the last question,
Okay.
that I think need your attention. Please answer.
Okay. To begin with, about methodology. Methodology is always a human device. That is the manhaj or manhajiyya. It is a human being inventing a term to explain what they want to say in a way that persuade you, and you explain the language or the issue in a way that you hope to persuade me. So a successful methodology is one that succeeds in communicating to believers, in our case here, about what Islam means, about what Sharia means. There is no divinely ordained methodology. Because if there was, the Prophet would have told us about it. So because we do accept that the Prophet never withheld something that we are supposed to deliver to us, so therefore, if he did not talk about maqasid or about methodology of this and that, Makkiyah or Madaniyah, this is our human ijtihad. It is not something that is ready-made. And in any case, what you say usul al-fiqh as a classic, but who invented usul al-fiqh? Who invented even the term Sharia or any of this? You'll find that they are human beings. Yeah, Shafi'i is sort of credited with inventing usul al-fiqh or organizing usul al-fiqh, especially in his book al-Risala. But al-Shafi'i lived and died, and the book was 100 years old before it was widely accepted. So I say that al-Shafi'i, and of course I know that there is a special relationship to Indonesia. Shafi'i radiallahu anhu, min kibar, one of the major scholars of Islam and fiqh, wrote a book that was not accepted by other scholars for 100 years, meaning that it did not have influence for 100 years. So he did not know that he was a Shafi'i. And when a Shafi'i died, he did not know that he has a mazhab called the mazhab al-Shafi'i. That was made by his students after he died. And the term of what he said about Risalat al-Salah, also that he did not attempt in his own lifetime the acceptance of this idea. And so it goes like this, that the values come and go according to people's experience and so on. So methodology is not static or given. When you say classic fiqh, fiqh means understanding. My understanding today is over time things change, values and attitudes change. And so it goes like this. Therefore, I'm not really in favor of, yes, I am personally trying to develop a methodology that communicates the ideas I'm trying to present. But I should know that this is not going to be easy or accepted lightly. Haider early on quoted something that I said. I say that if I am not resisted, I am not relevant. If I am not resisted, I am not relevant. Meaning that if people really care about what I'm saying, some of them will resist me. Not all, I hope, but some of them will. But if nobody resisted me, they must be dismissing what I'm saying as irrelevant. So that is the idea. We should not worry when we are resisted, but we should not take it for granted that we must be resisted because I said so. That's not the case. There was a third question, liberating. Is it a question about Sharia?
Liberation and renewal.
Okay.
Whether, yeah.
Yes, I think they are similar and they are both true. but not in a superficial way. Because renewal is talking about renewing the spirit of Islam and Sharia, whereas liberation is a broader concept about, you know, several ideas can all be liberating, but also that the question depends on what the issue is, where the community is. I know that from the work that I did in Indonesia with Haider and other Abu Bakr and other friends, uh, about the talk about the Indonesian mazhab, or about usul al-fiqh, this and that. Absolutely, I respect that, because these are people struggling to create a method by which they can understand what Islam is about. Absolutely fine. But you cannot claim to transpose that into North Africa. You cannot tell me I am from Sudan. Sudan is in Northeast Africa. You cannot tell me that we in Indonesia, because we are more Muslim than you are, come up with this idea of a madhab, and we want you to accept it. This is just like as imperial as the United States is.
Yeah.
The United States goes around the world telling people that we discovered democracy, we perfected democracy. I hope now they will become more modest after Trump to understand that
Yeah.
they don't own democracy. They don't, it is not protected from destruction simply because they are Americans. Democracy is a value, is a philosophy that you can promote or repress. And so is every other aspect about our life and our understanding. So therefore, I will not accept your imposing on me, even though we are both Muslims, and you will not accept my imposing on you. But both of us, we try should persuade each other.
Yeah.
Uh, and when we persuade, we
Yeah.
hope to create motivation. If you accept an idea because you are convinced in your mind and heart, you will do it better. But if you are accepting it because I impose on you, you will not do it. You will tell me yes, 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 but you will do nothing about it.
I'm afraid we are running out of time, Professor Naim. Please answer the last question about the second message of Mahmoud Muhammad Toha. And then we shall finish this session, please.
Okay. I think because time is short, I will invite you. I have a website that Haider can send you the link to. And also, I have my own publications which you can download. I have more than 70 articles and book chapters. And we have about 12 books. And any of them, unfortunately, the books I could not put on the website, but the articles, you will find them. And you can download and print any of them. So you will see the explanation about the idea of the first message and the second message, and why we should look for the answer in terms of the second message, which is relevant today, and not the first message, which was relevant in the 7th century. So I am happy to, if you care, read the articles and books and so on, and ask me. You'll see my email is written, in that website. Write to me, and inshallah, I will respond to you. Maybe we'll do a Zoom talk like this. I don't mind, because for me, the issue is not just simply a professional issue. It's a personal issue. I risk dying and suffering for my ignorance in spreading bad ideas. Or you can help me improve and verify my ideas, inshallah, and you save me from responsibility for that. So I have a vested interest in inviting you to communicate, to read and communicate, and I will be happy to respond as best as I can. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Naim, we are so grateful for you in insightful lecture and presentation. You have, answered a lot of, questions, even some of, the points you made, beyond our expectation. It was really, rich. It was really good, and give us, historical lesson, understandings about, especially about what the Sharia mean when it was come into existence, right? And numbers of substantial understanding about the reality of Muslim society nowadays, the history of Muslim society in the past. They need, for us to return to our legacy, and but how we can use the legacy and interpret it in a better way, having a better understanding about that. All of these, Muslim and Islamic resources, using them with confidence, so that we can, stand upright, defending our right, defending our identity, ourselves from being colonized, and so that we can, develop and build our society for a better and for prosperous, umat, for the transformations of Muslim society to a better society. And I think there are still, some points that I cannot, repeat again one by one. I think all of the participants have enjoyed this very, very good lecture. We hope that we can one day, have this Zoom again, if there is a request, from the participant who want to, for instance, address some question, or they want to have another lecture with you. Please, you can, send us message, and we can try to manage to talk to Abdullahi and Naim if he's available. When he's available, then we can manage to have another Zoom, maybe in a better way, in a more small group, and then so everyone can raise more questions. I think Naim, again, thank you very much for this important and lecture. This is really inspiring, giving us so insightful understandings about Sharia, liberating Sharia, and decolonizing human rights. We want to close. I would like to remind that we will have a closing session after this. Imam Sari, before I return to you, we will have a closing session with taking pictures together among the panel, if you wish. Before after I return to Imam Sari, please. Please, Imam Sari, now is yours, and after that we will have we will have to take taking picture session among the panelists, please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Haidir, for having chaired this webinar session. Dear all panelists, before we close this webinar, as Dr. Haidir said, may we take a picture together, please? The admin staff will help us to capture our picture. Okay. 1, 2. Once again. 1, 2. Okay, now. Thank you so much. Again, our gratitude to go to Professor Abdullahi Ahmed An-Naim for his amazing and brilliant lecture. We also appreciate very much to all participants for joining us. See you in the next webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.